All right, y'all. So Nikki Haley, before losing the primary in New Hampshire, went on Fox and Friends and actually got into a pretty heated back and forth with the hosts. I thought this was interesting for a number of reasons. Now, keep in mind, she did outperform her polling in New Hampshire. She was at like 30 or 35% in the average, and then she ended up winning about 43, 44%. Trump as well was polling at like 50 or 51%, but he ended up winning 55%. And that's because DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy, who were in all the polls, they weren't actually in the race anymore by the time it came around. So she definitely did way better in New Hampshire than she did in Iowa, but that's cold comfort. I mean, this thing is over, right? Next, we go to her home state of South Carolina, but Trump is probably going to win by more in South Carolina than he won by in New Hampshire. It's actually a worse state for Nikki because of the demographics and because of the ideological makeup, and the polls show he's way ahead in South Carolina. So now she's staying in the race, but they're effectively trying to prod her here like, really? You're going to stay in the race? You sure you want to do that? That doesn't seem like a good idea. So let's watch and then we'll react.
Donald Trump beat you by 30 points in Iowa. Now in New Hampshire, the facts are that you were down in the polls. These are the polls. We know polls can be wrong. If you don't win today, do you go on to South Carolina? And I'm from South Carolina, and we love you there. We love Tim Scott there, but Donald Trump is also loved there. You don't want to go into your state and lose that state if you stay in the race, because we'd love to see you in some other capacity down the road. What is your response to that? Do you get out if you lose today?
No, I don't get out if I lose today. I mean, first of all, again, I'm going to say this. We've had 56,000 people vote for Donald Trump, and you're going to say that's what the country wants? That's not what the country wants. We're going to have New Hampshire vote today. They deserve to have the power of their voice said. I've won South Carolina twice. Do they support Trump? Of course they do. I voted for Trump twice. I think he was the right president at the right time. I don't think he's the right president going forward. There's a difference between support and where you want our country to go. I'm going to fight just as hard in South Carolina as I did before.
But do you worry, the Iowa polls were right. The distance was about what the polls were. Right now, you're down double digits in probably the last three major polls. And in South Carolina, I think you're down 40 or 50 points. So you think those polls are that dramatically wrong and you can make up that difference?
Well, I'm not down 40 or 50 points in South Carolina. I think we need to have a current poll in South Carolina. But I'll also tell you this. When I ran for governor, I ran against an attorney general, lieutenant governor, and a popular congressman. Mm-hmm. And I worked it and fought for it and earned it. I'm going to go into South Carolina and do the same thing. I take nothing for granted.
So there's no scenario where it stops tonight?
Of course not. We've already made our ad buy.
Yeah, how many? You $4 million in ads?
We've put in an ad buy. I don't know how much it is, but it's strong. We saved our money. I hoarded money.
This is really interesting she's saying this, because her strength is that the Republican establishment, the billionaire donor class, is lined up behind her. Now, I don't agree with the Republican establishment on anything at all, except this one thing, that they know, just as well as the rest of us do, Trump tried to overthrow the last election, and if given another opportunity, he could go full authoritarian. That's bad for business. It is bad for business to have a total rank authoritarian dictator wannabe who's back in power, and so they want somebody who's a puppet and not a threat to the stability of the system. Trump is a puppet to all their business interests, but he is a threat to the stability of the system. So they don't want that threat to the stability of the system. So she's got all that money, which is why she's in a position where she can go on. All right, let's continue.
We stayed in garden inns and residence inns. We were the only one that flew commercial because I wanted to make sure we could run through the tape on this. I'm going to fight no matter what. I don't care how much y'all want to coronate Donald Trump. At the end of the day, that's not what Americans want. Americans want a choice, and we're going to give them that choice.
You keep saying coronate, lie, not tell the truth. What are you saying in the catch? I'm really wondering why you think we're the enemy.
Because I've looked at the media. Look at the media saying, oh, this is Donald Trump's to have. Look at the political class all coalescing and saying everybody needs to get out. That's not democracy. That's not who we are.
I mean, she's kind of right, but it also is just like reading the polls and stating the obvious. Like, both things are true at the same time, right? Like, as somebody who's a political pundit, you read the polls and you state the obvious. You kind of have to do that. That's part of your job. But it is also true that as a matter of just like pure democracy, like, just let it play out. Let it play out, and then we could do all of our hot takes.
Two people in New Hampshire and you say, oh, it's over. We don't do that. South Carolina is an amazing state.
Is it hard to believe that 3 states really could choose an election for the entire country?
I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's what we go through. And at the end of the day, it's the fact that you don't do this for any reason outside of you love your country. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this because I don't want my kids to continue to live like this. I don't want chaos in their life. I want them to know they can buy a home. I want them to know that they can have a future. I want people to feel good about America. Right now, people feel chaos. They feel all kinds of divisions back and forth. That's not what they want. They want someone to go in there and work and show them. And when I win, I will spend every day proving to people that they made a good decision.
All right. So you would not if Donald Trump, it becomes apparent to you that Donald Trump's going to win New Hampshire, and he does, and if you go to South Carolina and win, would you endorse him? Just because Ron DeSantis said, I signed the pledge.
Oh, my God. Look, to be fair, this is actually super obnoxious, right? Like, this is the only thing you want to ask her. This is like the fourth time they asked the question in a slightly different way. You don't have any question on, like, the ideological differences between the two? Nothing on that? I mean, it's just... By the way, as you can see here, underneath, Alex Thompson says, the primary day Trump interview on Fox and Friends was notably softer with Kilmeade touring his plane and asking him, "You look like you're in fighting shape. How much weight did you lose? This is a new plane from the one you had me on when you were doing The Apprentice." And it's true, like, look, the media does sort of suck up to power. They do. And that is not what they should be doing. But they see the writing on the wall with Trump, and to be fair, they're correct about the writing on the wall. They're right. But they're trying to get back in his good graces because they know that he's where the power is. And that is absolutely insufferable. It reminds me of what happened with Tucker, where Tucker was saying behind the scenes in emails and in text messages, I hate Trump. I hate him with a burning passion. Nothing positive came out of the Trump era. The guy's a destroyer. Like, he said all these things that were vicious against Trump. I can't wait till we never have to talk about him again. And then the second it looked like, okay, he's kind of inevitable, it was like, I endorse Donald Trump. He's the one. And it's like, can any of you say what you actually think and believe? Can any of you be honest? Or are all of you little fucking taint lickers and ball coddlers and just like suckling at the teat of power in front of the world? That's what it is. And that's why every question here is like, well, you're in the way now. Well, you're in the way. Again, they're right. It's over. But like, make it interesting. Do your job in the media and ask, like, what are the ideological differences? Why do you think you're better? Blah, blah, all that stuff. None of it here.
Endorse the Republican nominee. Do you feel the same way?
Brian, we're going to finish this, and I will enjoy telling you I told you so. But what I will also tell you is I've always said I'm going to support the Republican nominee. We can't have a President Kamala Harris. That's why I'm running, because Donald Trump doesn't beat Joe Biden in a general election. We beat him by double digits.
But in the real clear, he's up 3 points as the average of the most substantive polls in the country.
Up against Joe.
Donald Trump beating Joe Biden by 3 points. On the
okay, and that's margin of error, Brian. We did that in 2018. We did that in 2020. Right. We did that in 2022. I campaigned for a ton of candidates that were good, and we all lost because Donald Trump was the incumbent. We can't lose again. This is about November, too. And at the end of the day, a Kamala Harris presidency, we won't survive it. And, you know, Wall Street Journal showed I was up by 17 points, and Donald Trump said it was a dirty poll. That was his pollster that did the poll. It's reality.
You know, look, she's right about that. She's right about that. Like, the fact of the matter is she is more electable in a general election. If it was Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden, Nikki Haley would absolutely trounce Joe Biden. There's no doubt. Trump is the only one who can make it a competitive race with Joe Biden. Like, that'll be a close election, regardless of how it goes. It could go either way, but it'll be close. With Nikki Haley, it wouldn't be close. And that's not because, you know, her policies are great or her ideology is wonderful. It's just like all the bare minimum optics things. Like, she's not 1,000 years old. She could put a couple sentences together, etc. So, look, she's right. The point I keep coming back to, though, is this. At the end there, she kind of made clear, like, yeah, eventually I probably will get out and endorse him. But, guys, I don't understand why DeSantis and why Nikki Haley basically just hopped out. I get they're trying to not embarrass themselves. I get they feel like he's inevitable, so they want to, like, maintain a close relationship to power and maybe still have some donors behind them for the next time they want to run for something. I get all that. But the guy has 91 criminal charges. If we get a conclusion on that before Inauguration Day or before the general election, he could be taken off the field, basically. Same thing with the Maine case and the Colorado case where they're trying to kick him off the ballot. Now the Supreme Court is going to have to hear whether or not he is allowed to run because he violated, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the insurrection thing. Like, he could be taken off the ballot. So it doesn't seem like she's actually going to hang in there if she loses South Carolina. It seems like she'll be gone after she loses South Carolina. But I don't understand, because all you need to do is exist and be on the ballot and be living and breathing to have a 50% chance of maybe being the nominee. With them getting out, what that sets up is whoever Trump picks as his VP, that would then become the standard bearer. So it would be somebody who's anointed. Trump wins the primary, then 50-50 chance he gets kicked off through one way or another, either because he's going to be behind bars or because those cases come through and the Supreme Court sides against him. And then you'd either have, here's my best guess at the moment, he's either going to pick Kristi Noem or he's going to pick Don Jr. to be his VP. And then that person will become the standard bearer if Trump is taken off the field. And then you'd have Kristi Noem or Donald Trump Jr. versus Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, because Joe Biden's now definitely winning the Democratic primary. And if he doesn't make it, then it's going to be Kamala Harris, right? And it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This is all so wild. It's all so wild. By the way, none of those scenarios are acceptable to me. Trump versus Biden, Kamala versus Kristi Noem, or Trump Jr. And by the way, you bet your ass cheeks there's a real chance he picks his son. Why? Because then if he's taken off the field and his son becomes president, of course he's going to pardon his ass completely, right? How well can he really trust any of the other people? Like, will you really pardon me if I pick you, Kristi Noem? She probably will, but he doesn't know that. He knows that with his son. So, I don't know, man. A lot of wild scenarios playing out in front of us here, but the fact of the matter is, none of them are good. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.